Welcome back. In the last 10 steps in the introduction to Spring, what we looked at was a simple example of dependency injection. What we did is we had a very simple binary search IMPL. This can be any algorithm. This can be some complex algorithm which needs a sort algorithm. And what we are doing in here is we are actually auto wiring the sort algorithm into the binary search IMPL. This sort algorithm is a dependency of binary search IMPL. The binary search IMPL needs the sort algorithm to be able to do its work. To complete the search, it needs to be able to do the sorting. So sort algorithm is called a dependency. What we'll do in this quick step is quickly review the concept of dependency. This is one example of a dependency, right? So sort algorithm is a dependency of binary search IMPL. When you move into the world of enterprise application development, what we would do is we would develop applications in layers. So what we would do is we would have a web layer, we would have a business layer, we would have a data layer. So you would have separate layers, each having functionality of its own. The web layer is typically concerned with how you are interfacing with the external world. If it's a web application, then it would deal with how do you take the business logic and expose it to the UI. Or if it's a web service, then it would be concerned with how to convert the data which is coming from the business into a format, into JSON, into XML, which it can send to the outside world. That's basically the role of a web layer. The business layer, on the other hand, is where all your business logic is present. Things like transaction management and things like that is what the business logic cares about. The data layer, on the other hand, is concerned with how to take the data and store it to the database. The business layer typically needs the data layer to be able to do its work, right? So anything in the business layer, it cannot just have business logic. It needs to have some data as well. It needs to get the data from the database, or maybe from an external interface. So it needs the data layer. So the business layer is dependent on the data layer. So anything which is present in the business layer is typically dependent on the data layer. So typically when we look at components in the business layer, the dependency which is present in them is data layer. And the web layer, on the other hand, is dependent on the business layer. The web, any component in the web layer, so for example, a controller would be invoking a service from the business layer. So if you look at the typical architecture of web application, there are a lot of dependencies that would be present. Data layer is a dependency for business layer is a dependency for web layer. Whatever we looked at as a simple concept of at AutoWired, actually when it comes to enterprise applications, you would see that it's very frequently used. The enterprise web applications are full of dependencies. Let's look at three more examples of dependencies. If you look at here, this is a to-do controller. It is making use of a to-do business service. So the to-do controller might be something which is used to render the screen, render the to-dos and other stuff. And it is making use of the to-do business service to get all the details. So the to-do business service is a dependency of to-do controller. If you look at this example, to-do business service needs to get the data from the database. How does it get data from the database? Will it directly call the database? No, it's in the business layer. It needs to talk to the data layer. That is to-do data service. So the to-do data service is a dependency of to-do business service. And when we go one level deeper, to-do data service will need to fire a query to the database. How does it do it? If it's using Spring JDBC, it will make use of something called JDBC template. If the concept of JDBC template is not really clear for you, do not worry about it. We'll discuss a lot about it in the JDBC section. But for now, you can think of this as something which can call a query, which can invoke a query and get the details back. So the to-do data service makes use of the JDBC template. So the JDBC template is a dependency of the to-do data service. We saw examples of dependencies in the web layer to-do controller. In the business layer, we saw that the component which is present in the business layer is to-do business, and it's dependent on to-do data service. And the to-do data service is dependent on the JDBC template which is provided by Spring JDBC to be able to talk to the database. So a typical application is full of examples of dependencies. In this video, we wanted to give you a few examples of dependencies so that you have the concept clearly in mind when we go on to the next steps. Until the next step, bye-bye.